Welcome to tonight's On the Edge with me, Theo Chalmers. Tonight's show is 2 hours long and live, so if you have any questions for my guests during the show, text them to 87778 with the word EDGE, a space, and then your name, location, and your message, and we'll try to pick up any that really hit the mark. They're all charged at standard rate, so why not get ready to text? Tonight's show features two people whose ideas for a new society were presented to the world in Peter Joseph's film Zeitgeist Addendum, a film which has been watched online by millions. He is trying to launch a zeitgeist movement to change people's perception of reality and consciousness. As part of that idea, he discovered and has incorporated the ideas of an extraordinary 93-year-old thinker who has created a strategy to build a new, unified, symbiotic world in harmony with nature. This project intends to achieve nothing less than the unification of the human race. It includes the design of new cities, the abolition of money, a new paradigm for living. It is called the Venus Project. I am enormously pleased to welcome two guests here on a lecture tour from their 21.5-acre research center located in Venus, Florida. They are founder of the Venus Project, Jacque Fresco and Roxanne Meadows, who has been with the project for 33 years. What a show we've got tonight. Welcome to you both.
Thank you.
Thank you, Theo. Nice to be here.
I'm glad you can make it. And Jacque, if I could start with you. I know you've been working on this for some time, but you are an extraordinary Renaissance man, aren't you? You've done lots of interesting things in your life.
That I don't know, but I've worked on a lot of things.
You've designed lots of different things.
Yes, I have.
And how did you come to conceive of a new society?
During the major depression in the States, there were people that bought new houses and new cars, and the banks failed.
You have to forgive me for asking, which depression, Jacque?
1930, 29.
That big one?
Yes.
Yeah, the Dust Bowl and all that.
That was the time when I saw 15 million people evicted from their homes because the banks failed. They couldn't pay them off. So they bought, before that they bought cars and all that, repossessed, and people moved out of their homes by the banks, and about 15 million was sleeping in every empty lot. I was just a kid then, you know, 12, 13 years old, and I looked around at all these people. My dad was an agronomist, a sort of an agriculturist, and he was one of the first guys laid off, and he tried to get a job, but there was no openings, and he was evicted.
Where were you, Jacque?
Where?
Which
New York City.
Oh, you were in New York City?
Yes, in Brooklyn.
Okay.
And since people were sleeping in every lot, I looked around in stores and they had radios and vacuum cleaners, but people didn't have money. So what good is all that? It seemed to me that our nation was capable of producing all the goods and services and making it available to people, but the government did not. At that time, Roosevelt was in, while Hoover said, prosperity is right around the corner. But those are just words. I've learned then that politicians say things people like to hear. And if they're good at it, they can get elected. Theologians say things that people want to hear. They're there, everything's going to work out all right, don't worry about it, the Lord will provide. And that sort of thing is the dependency of people needing that kind of information. But I found out in reading scientific books and journals that scientists do not speak to win approval. If the majority of people believe the earth is flat, they come right out and they say, this is the evidence we have to prove it's round. Now, they don't say it's a little round and a little flat. Then you get along with everybody. It's not the business of science to get along.
So you've made it your business to change people's perception.
I try to. I don't know that I can do that.
Okay, but you know, I'm interested in what made you suddenly go from being, say, a designer of helicopters or a consultant to the motion picture industry to basically creating a new world.
That's later. That was later on. But when I was a kid, the Depression forced people to ask new questions. How come there was a depression? How come the banks failed? They never asked those questions until the depression. And every university had students outside discussing communism, socialism, fascism. They were discussing things because conditions drove them to that. It isn't that people suddenly became intellectually bright. Conditions forced that. So I noticed that, so I listened to Nazis. They had the American flag and the swastika. During the Depression, they were talking about how great National Socialism was. Then I listened to socialists, and I asked questions. I said, how will you prevent corruption? They didn't have any answers. Then there was a guy speaking on communism, mankind united, all kinds of ideas, back to the good old days, people growing their own food. But I was standing in front of a communist, and he said, beat it, son. I was just a kid, because there are mostly adults around. I said, no, I want to hear what you've got to say. He said, why? I said, well, I don't believe what the Republicans say about the Democrats or what the Democrats say about the Republicans. I want to hear from a communist what communism is. He said, you can stay. So after about an hour, I said, I want to ask you 10,000 questions. He said, you'll have to go to the YCL. I said, what's that? He said, Young Communist League. I said, where are they? And he gave me an address, and I went there. And there were kids about 10 years old to 17, and they were reading Dostoevsky's book, such as Crime and Punishment, 10-year-olds. They were much brighter than the average child I've ever met. And I stayed there for about an hour. Then I asked the questions. How are you going to prevent corruption in the future? They said, well, when that time comes, we'll work on it. How are you going to house the masses? Well, we'll work on that when that time comes. I said, let's start a technical branch and work on those problems. So the lead guy said to me, you're deviating from the teachings of Marx. You'll have to leave. I said, I didn't come here to hurt anybody. I came here to help. I would help any group of people. So the vice president of the Young Communist League got up and said, let's hear him out. And they kicked us both out. So that was the end of my attempt to reach the communists.
Okay.
Then
Can I just interrupt there? Because those questions you just asked those communists, I'm going to ask you those same questions later with regard to your plans.
Of course.
And your society.
I want you to.
Good. That's both of us then. Okay, so carry on then.
Then I started, and attending religious sessions, the minister said how wonderful the divine plan was. God makes it rain to make the plants grow. So I raised my hand. I said, why does it rain at sea? So he said, hold your hands out, and he beat the daylights out of me. And I didn't understand him. I thought he was kind of stupid individual. He should have said, well, maybe I never thought of that. That's interesting. So I wanted answers. I don't want to follow anybody, and I don't want anybody to follow me. If what I say makes sense, do it. If it doesn't, get off. To build a following where people admire you, walk around, that's dangerous.
Okay.
So I don't want to lead anybody. I just want to point out things, such as when World War II came about, being a kid, I just noticed that they were bombing the hell out of each other. Germany was bombing England and France, and U.S. sent Lindbergh to Germany to see what was happening. And he came back and said, the Germans are turning out 3,000 planes a month. And U.S. had 600 first-class fighting aircraft. And that was not enough to engage. So they asked the aircraft companies to expand. They said, hell no. After the war, we're stuck with a big plant. So they gave the aircraft companies the money to expand. America supported 60% of American industry, build it up. And after the war, they gave it back to them for 1 cent to 3 cents on the dollar. That's public funds. They didn't give the public interest in that. And it looked to me very strange. Mm-hmm. And that's what was strange about it. If they conscripted the lives of young men, put them up to defend the country I felt at that time that they should have conscripted all the war industries so nobody makes a buck out of war. If you make money out of war, you sell submarines, airplanes for $40,000. Today it's $1 million for airplanes. People make a lot of money from war. And I thought that was unfair. If millions of young Americans put their lives up to defend the country, they used to say on television, buy war bonds, that'll bring Johnny home faster. So they should have conscripted all the banks, all the money to bring Johnny home. And I didn't understand how you can make a profit during the war. So I'd like to see all the war industries put on the same basis of pay as the soldiers. The soldiers at that time were men who enlisted for the adventure. I asked thousands of soldiers during basic training when I was drafted, what are you fighting for? What did you know what you... No, they didn't know. Really, they didn't know. And World War I, they had an IQ of 11-year-old. So soldiers never knew what they were fighting for. It's just the medals and the adventure they went into the war for. But I asked thousands of soldiers, what are you fighting for? To see what they knew.
Did you
fight? They didn't know a damn thing.
Jack, did you fight?
No, I was sent to Wright Field, Dayton, Ohio, for ideas and invention.
Okay.
The aircraft industry. So they said to me, first thing, said, can you make a bomb that moves sideways? I said, no, I can only design safety devices. I don't know how to do that. I know how to do that, but I won't. Do you understand that?
I do understand, yeah. You were a sort of conscientious objector, a subtle conscientious objector, were you?
Well, no, I couldn't do that because that would put me in prison and get me in trouble. I wanted to get my ideas out in the Army. Okay. So I told the Army men, the top brass, that I was surrounded by, such as a major. I said, I think the war is wrong. And he said to me, you better be good, what you say. I said, you got to give me at least 20 minutes. Will you do that? He agreed. I said, don't judge me till I finish.
Okay.
Now, I had a friend that was in World War I. His name was Forrest
Gump?
Forrest Weissong.
Sure.
And he used to fly military planes in World War I. Okay. And he told me he flew over German munition dumps with orders not to bomb it. He said he flew over 8 times. Now, he couldn't understand why he shouldn't bomb it. After the war, there was a book called Arms and the Men. I want you to remember that. That book showed how DuPont...
Is that Ernest Hemingway?
Arms and the Men.
Wasn't it?
DuPont had holdings in I.J. Farben. That's who he's ordered not to bomb it. Now, that's dirty.
Yeah.
Fortune magazine ran Arms and the Men years ago, showing how different nations had investments in other nations, and so they manipulated things so you didn't. And I thought that was corrupt. That was not good. The war was dirty. Then in World War II, we were taking all the islands in the South Pacific, shooting Japanese, and telling the natives, they're coming to take your island away. And they showed the natives how to use guns. They didn't care about the lives of people. They cared about defending their particular institution. So I went along with a guy named Alexander P.D. Seversky, who owned Seversky Aircraft Factory. He said we shouldn't build pursuit planes and we shouldn't take the islands in the South Pacific. So I said, what should we do? He said, well, we should build long-range bombers and knock out the power projects in Germany. That'll stop the aircraft factories and everything else. Don't shoot soldiers in the field. He said, that does nothing. If you don't bomb the power projects and shut down the munition factories, you can keep sending airplanes and other things over. But there's no money in that, shutting down the factories. And there's more money in ordering new airplanes. You understand what I mean?
I do understand.
So the war looked bad, and President Johnson even, at that time, had holdings in steel material that linked together to make runways on airports. And I knew that the profit system made war unsane, not insane. I feel that people were stupid when you figure out the cost of World War II, not just in lives. and flattening out all of Germany. England was bombed flat. France was attacked and bombed. Thousands of soldiers were killed, and 400 ships sunk to the bottom of the sea with copper, brass, manganese, tungsten. What a tremendous loss. And then paying the pensions of veterans for the rest of their lives after the war. I think it was cheaper to rebuild the world, build hospitals, clean out the slums, give nations what they lacked. It'd be smarter to rebuild the world rather than train millions of men to be killing machines. That's what a soldier is, a killing machine. And I figured if we send kids back to school to become problem solvers instead of killing machines, how to bridge the difference between nations. How do you get to nations that have a totally different value system than we do? Here's how you get there. It's very easy. The War Department doesn't know these things. They're comprised of very stupid men that are concerned with defense only. Here's how you do it. You approach a nation on the basis that they all need the same things we need. Clean air, clean water, arable land, and a relevant education. That means no investment brokers, no bankers, no advertising, just people that know agronomy, geology, structural engineering, physics, science. Everything that you have, your radio, your television set, your washing machine, your refrigerator, is technology. Politicians have no knowledge of anything. They're lawyers and businessmen elected to political office who don't know the fundamentals of how people get to be the way they are. That means if you were raised as a baby by the headhunters of the Amazon, you'd be a headhunter. If you never saw anything else, I mean, no movies, never travel. And if I said to you, doesn't it bother you to have 10 shrunken heads? He says, yes, my brother has 20. Is he a bad guy? No, he's reflecting his culture. So I believe if you were brought up as a baby in Nazi Germany, all you see is Heil Hitler, Deutschland über alles, and all the books are burned, you become a Nazi. Is he a bad guy? No. That's all he's been exposed to. So I do not blame people no matter what they are. I even think that a serial killer is made that way by the environment they're reared in. If you're brought up in the Deep South, you're going to speak with a Southern accent. And I say, stop speaking with a Southern accent. Well, that doesn't work. Say no to drugs is really stupid. Whoever proposed that, as long as there's money in drugs, they're going to sell drugs. Do you understand that?
I do. Jack, I'm going to have to butt in a little bit here. I just want to get Roxanne in the room. So, Roxanne, I mean, Jacque is obviously a very passionate speaker and thinker, and you've been working with him for 33 years.
Yes.
What's your role?
Well, I've been working with him and doing everything I can to help this direction, because I really think it's the only viable alternative out there. When I heard about it, it made more sense than anything I'd ever heard of. The activists today are upset about what's going on, and they're a watchdog of this system, but they don't pose any alternatives. And as long as you don't pose any alternatives, it's the same story. So we're not trying to fix this system. We don't think you can fix it. That's doing patchwork. You can't really make this system, the monetary system, just or equitable. They say it's a democracy and you have freedom, but you're really as free as your purchasing power. There really is no democracy. That's a word that they get people to go fight and die for, and to us it really means nothing. We don't see how it means anything in this culture. You don't, you know, when people say we live in a democracy and we're a participatory democracy, and we say, well, did you vote for the space age? Did you vote for the Iraq war? Did you vote for libraries or bridges in any areas? No. You vote for who they put up. And those people...
And they only have two parties, don't they? They have only two parties.
To us, they have one party.
Well, they may have, but they have two different names, don't they? In America, you have the Democrats and the Republicans.
And they represent big business.
Conservative. And
that's right.
Maybe the Liberal Democrats a little bit.
So this is an entirely different system. And we pose an entirely different social design. We look at what causes the problems and try and design a society that eliminates war, poverty, hunger, crime, and that can be done today, but not within a monetary system.
You know, it's what you present, a lot of the things that you present are very attractive, and we'll get to some great images, and we're going to show a bit of a film.
Good.
I don't think we've got time in this segment to show the film. Perhaps the gallery could tell me. No, thank you. So all these things are very attractive, and the designs and so on are incredibly attractive for this new world, if you like. But you know, how do you don't just snap your finger and there's a new world? How do you achieve it?
It would be nice. But first, like anything else, you have to introduce it to the public, like what you're doing, through all the media that we can. We feel that we'd like to present a major motion picture. Peter Joseph did a tremendous job to introduce this to the whole world. And we get emails, we get hundreds and hundreds of emails a day, and people who want to help.
What I want to do is I want to go to one of these pictures. This is, let's go to picture 2, can we? This is a picture of some of your architectural ideas for a new world. There we go, it's on that screen there. Oh, it's gone again. Yep, there it is. So these are, Jack, these are some of your ideas, are they?
Yes.
And you've designed these buildings?
Yes.
I mean, they're stunning buildings. I would be very happy to live in either one of those two, for instance.
Well, actually, they're all transitional. There's no final architecture or final frontiers or final city. Even the best city I design will be a straitjacket to the kids of the future. They'll design their own cities. And if you make a statue of me, that holds back the future. So yeah, there's no more self-ego involved. Most architects design tall buildings and feel proud of it. They should design buildings for living, comfort, safety, earthquake-proof, fire-proof, termite-proof, and architects don't do that. They're all little personalities that seek recognition. You don't fight for recognition. You fight for elimination of the problems. When people are saner, they will not want a Nobel Prize. Because if you work on cancer 10 years and I read your book and find out what didn't work, and I come up 2 years later, I win a Nobel Prize, I feel that everybody working on cancer works just as hard as you do. So I don't think there should be Nobel Prizes. They should work because they believe in making life better for people.
Well, I've got to come back to this same
That's all
question
right.
now. How do you get the world to change? You know, assuming that your ideas are acceptable to the majority, and I'm not sure that they are. We'll get to that. But assuming that they are acceptable to the majority and everyone finds them attractive, and you were able to disseminate these ideas all around the world, and everybody bought into them. You know what I mean? How do you get to that point? How do you get to the point where everybody buys into it?
The question is, how do you get from here to there?
Yeah, and how do you stop the people who are really in power?
I understand.
From clinging on to what they've got?
First thing that has to happen, they have to have an economic problem. That's what happened during the Depression. That's when socialism, communism, fascism all emerged.
But we've got that now, Jack. We've got an economic...
We're in that process now.
But I don't see anybody going, oh, let's get rid of money.
Wait a while. We're nearing the turning point. See, now, all over the world, societies are breaking down, and politicians don't know what to do. They gave the money, I'm talking about America, because that's where I came from. They gave the money to the people that created the problem in the first place. Then they bail out the automobile factories. When they were going broke, they didn't even want to close the plant, and they bailed them out. The automobile companies never submitted a blueprint with a car better than Toyota, faster than Toyota, better built at a lower price. If they don't submit that, and the public doesn't have purchasing power due to losing their jobs, who the hell's going to buy these new cars?
Well, they're giving cash for clunkers, as they call them in America, and we've got a scrappage scheme in the UK as well. So
yes, all over the world, all governments are corrupt. Did you get that message? All of them are corrupt. Okay. Communism, socialism, all of them. Fascism. So I felt, is there another way to operate the government? And I sat down and I began to design the society of the future.
I've got to cut in there because we're going to go for a break now. If you'd like to text in your questions or comments for Jacque Fresco and Roxanne Meadows, why not do so now to 87778 with the word EDGE and then your text. I'll see you back here very soon. Welcome back to On the Edge with me, Theo Chalmers, and my special guests, Jacque Fresco and Roxanne Meadows. Jacque, just before the break, we were talking about how we can achieve this utopia, if you like. But what I thought we'd do now is just show a bit of a little film that you've made.
Yes.
If we can. So if we can go to that film, and that'll give people an idea. Oh.
This is only transitional pictures of what the future could be. Now what it will be, I don't know. We may kill each other, because I'm very much against the space program. If any one nation gets out there long enough, there's going to be nuclear weapons going around. We're not wise enough yet, nor are we civilized. As long as there's prisons, police, armies, navies, we are not civilized. When the world joins together and agrees to use the earth intelligently, I'm talking about the whole world, that'll be the beginning of the civilized age. There's no such thing as utopia. Every city will continue to grow, change, just as your laptop undergoes change. There's no final frontiers. That's bull. That's written by Hollywood hacks. Movies on the future where they burn each other with laser weapons and robots choke the designer. That's Hollywood hacks. Has nothing to do with the future. Politicians have no way of dealing. That's the city of the future, one city. The universities design buildings and people live in them, complain and bitch about the lack of how fast the elevators move. My grandmother can't get out of them, and we change them till they work very well. And at that time, we move the buildings out there, the concert halls and all. After put to test, the city has everything in the middle: medical care, dental care, and the shopping where goods are available to everyone without a price tag. There's no money anymore. The reason there's no money is because drug companies pay off radio stations, television stations to pitch their drugs. The drug company doesn't tell you if you drink carrot juice, that'll lower your blood pressure. There's no money in that, so they make pills. So I'm saying that all of the industries are price system oriented, money oriented. And if that's their orientation, I don't trust them. When a doctor says your kidney has to come out, we don't know whether you're trying to pay off a new boat or whether your kidney has to come out. So I don't trust the monetary system. So here we show buildings being assembled automatically by machine. You don't need laborers anymore. You don't need young girls standing behind counters. We can design machines to move 20-story buildings, float them out to the site, and with 1 pound of force, we can move a building a ton of weight. So the round city of the future will put every district the same distance from that center building. And the center building has everything that people need.
Well, I mean, that looks absolutely incredible, and I'm sure it would be great. I would think there probably isn't a person on the planet who wouldn't think that looks great. But I've got to get back to that question,
sure,
which we were interrupted
absolutely
by the break. And that is, how does it happen?
Okay.
How does it happen?
I'm going to try to answer that. If I fail, you have to let me know that you didn't.
Well, I think people, you know, a lot of people are texting in already. A lot of, let me just read out a couple here. This gentleman should be president of the world. Really? Kind regards, Morris Wilmot. You are more than an inspiration. You are a motivation. Thank you for your light in a dull world. Extreme emotion. That man should be in power. That's Aidan Doherty in Strabane in Northern Ireland. But then Bob in Whitehead says, how does it work without money? Who goes to work? What do you do?
Okay, you ask me that now?
Yep.
Okay. The way it happens is the system has to fall. People have to lose confidence in their elected leaders. I have no control. At that time, when they try to solve problems and it doesn't work, then the public will say, be looking for new ideas. They don't give a damn right now. As long as they're working, paying off their home and car, that's all they're concerned with. Only if they lose their jobs and their homes do they begin to look around for new ideas. So what we want to do is make a motion picture called And the World Will Be One. And that motion picture is about a family in the future, how they live, their lifestyle, and children 6 and 7 years old that are different than our children. No Mickey Mouse clubs or Cinderella or garbage that they get in school today. Children can learn math, they can learn anything at all. And the children are bright and they ask their parents, how did we get to a world without war, without crime? I want to know in detail. So father says, didn't you get that in school? He says, only a little bit. And the kids say, we want to know exactly how we got from this old world of chiselers, bankers, fraudulent in social institutions, propaganda. How do you get from the old world to the new one? And the father says, that's a long thing. Didn't you get that in school? They said, not enough. I want detail. I want to know. So he sits both children down and he starts talking, and the camera goes back to the present day, where there's unemployment, protest signs, don't cut down the forest. As long as people buy lumber, they're going to keep cutting down the forest. The stupidity of walking around with protest signs doesn't work. You see, the liberal points out to the shortcomings of our country, but does not offer an alternative. Communism, socialism offers no working alternative.
But isn't your future a bit like a communist world, from each according to his ability to each according to his needs?
That.
No,
That's
there's
the kind
money. They use money in communism and socialism.
Okay, well, how
they have elite.
How does it work?
They have stratification. They have politicians. It's nothing like that. They're for the labor class. We're for eliminating the labor class as soon as possible through automation and technology, and people can go back to school and do what they want.
But okay, well, who's going to design the buildings then? That's a job, isn't it?
The buildings are already designed.
But you just said those buildings will evolve, and if the lifts don't work and Granny can't get to her exercise class...
We build the first city, and that city has the planners in it first. The planners and the people that work out the details. The second city, we level some of the old cities and keep some of it as museum cities to show people how people used to live. We level the old cities and mine it for the iron, glass, and other materials, and recycle it back into new cities that are fireproof, earthquake-proof, and there's no automobiles. There's circular elevators that take you anywhere. Here's where I got the idea. Radio City, New York, the Empire State Building, takes 1 million people up and down and never crash into one another. So we turn the elevators out that way. So you dial where you want to go, the Arts Center, Music Center, just like an elevator, and it takes you there. Putting people in automobiles is a stupid thing. More people are killed on the highways than war. And you say drive safely. Those are words. We don't have drive safely.